Hi everyone, my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a fun video where I'm going to be talking about all my 5-star reads so far this year. So I actually did this last year where around June I sat down and I talked about all the 5-star books that I had for the year. And I will say that last year I had like over 50 or close to 50 by this time. I only have 15 books this year that are 5-star reads. I did it a little bit differently, that if I rated a book 5 stars on Goodreads, but it's technically a 4.5 star, I'm adding it into this video. I have been a little bit more strict with giving out 5 stars, only because it's like I have some of my all-time favorite books that are 5 stars. Do you know what I mean? And I kind of compare when I finish reading a book. I'm like, okay, is it up there with some of my favorites? So that's kind of how I have my criteria for 5-star reads. But with all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump to the 15 books that have been my 5-star reads so far this year. The big ones I'm going to get out, I mean, these are in no particular order. I kind of went by Goodreads, but I did read Binding and Keeping 13 this year by Chloe Walsh. This is Shannon and Johnny's story. And when I tell you this book is John and Shannon's story, I thought would be like all-time favorites. It would be really hard to top this. But Johnny and Shannon have this easygoing romance that is so just easy to fall into their book. I mean, these books, I'm stuttering. These books definitely have a lot of trigger warnings. There's a lot of dark elements in here. These books take place in Ireland. Johnny is a rugby player and Shannon is new to the school that they all go to, and she left her previous school, which is like a public school, to go to this private school because she's being bullied because of her family and stuff like that. Her dad abuses her at home too. She has to take care of her 3 younger siblings. So it's like, it's very, very emotional. And when I read this book, I fell in love. When I read these 2 books, I fell in love with Chloe Walsh's writing. I am actually so happy that I discovered Chloe Walsh this year, because not only did I pick up these 2 books, I picked up Saving 6 and Redeeming 6 as well. This is Joey and Aoife's story, which Joey is Shannon's older brother. So, I mean, technically you could read these 2 by themselves. You have to read Saving 6 before reading Redeeming 6. But, I mean, I've talked about this series quite a bit. These are very big books, okay? I'm not gonna, it's very hard to hold these, okay? But these books are just, there's something about Chloe Walsh's writing. Yes, they're big. Yes, she's wordy. But she writes with such emotions. Like, she literally, I don't know what it is, but her writing works for me. It's so emotional. I will say I thought that Binding and Keeping 13 couldn't be topped. And then I read Saving 6 and Redeeming 6. And Joey and Aoife, I mean, they're a little bit older, so they have a little bit more things that they're going through. But Joey is someone that I relate to in different ways. And their story is just so heartbreaking, but so heartwarming. It really shows, like, really what love can be. Like, from Johnny and Shannon, it's so easy. They just kind of fall naturally in love, and then you have all of these other things that are outside forces that kind of, you know, are getting at them, you know what I mean? But Joey and Aoife, like, Joey is stopping himself from loving Aoife fully because of everything else that's going on in his life, and that's even more, like, emotional to me. Even though, like, they are soulmates, they are supposed to be together, they are, you know, the other half of each other, and it's just, these books are just so emotional to me, and everyone will have their opinion on them, and that's totally fine, but for me, they just hit differently, and I absolutely loved them. I love Chloe Walsh's writing. I could just sit with these books and just devour them, and I want to reread them before the end of the year for sure. It's just finding the time to sit down for hours and hours and hours, because once I get started, I'm not going to want to stop reading them. So I just wanted to get those out of the way, because those are my favorite books probably of the year. I mean, I wouldn't say probably. Those are some of my favorite books of the year. They're going to be on my end of the year list for my favorite books of the year. So just wanted to throw them out there. But I'm going to start with one of the first books I read this year, and that's The Serpent and the Wings of Night. So this was my first Chris Broadbent book. No, it wasn't. Was it? I can't remember if I read Daughter of No Worlds or this one first. But I will say I preferred this series over Daughter of No Worlds. I will say that this is a duet. It is finished, but it's the first book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, but it's also the first book in the Nightborn duet. Rain and Oriah, their story is complete, technically, in the duet, and you can read both of them now, but when I read this book, for some reason, it's a fantasy romance. But one thing I liked more about this book compared to some other fantasy romances, is that Oriah, while she is a very strong female character, she's not overly egotistical to where she won't accept help from people. Like, she knows what her weaknesses are, and she's not willing to admit what those weaknesses are. Well, admitting is a different word. I shouldn't use that word. It's more of like acknowledging what her weaknesses are and accepting help when it's needed for her. And that's why I think I love this book, because sometimes in fantasy romances, sometimes the female character can get kind of annoying because they're like, I know everything, I don't need your help, I'm a strong independent woman, which may be true, but everyone needs help at some point. And I personally really love this. I also love Rain. A lot of people will fall in love with him more in the second book than in the first book. I think this book is all about Oriah and getting to know her and everything like that. But yeah, this was a 5-star read. I really love Chris Broadbent's writing. I always say this, that you can read Six Scorched Roses, which is actually a novella by Chris Broadbent. In This World is technically 1.5, but I think you can read it before reading this book, just if you want to see if Chris Broadbent's writing is for you. So I always say that. I think that'd be totally fine, but I always say that because committing to a big fantasy romance book is a lot. It's a lot. So yeah, I would highly recommend this one if you haven't picked it up already. Like I said, the duet is complete, so you can read Oriah and Rain's story. Another book that I gave 5 stars is In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. So I always say this, with me, my 5-star read can be because I have an emotional attachment to the book, because I have a crazy reaction to something that happened in the story. For this one, it is more of, I read this book at the right time. Like, what these two characters were going through is just something that spoke to me, and I emotionally connected with it. Like, I know this is probably not going to be a 5-star read for a lot of people, and that's totally fine, but for me, it's more of like I connected with the characters. I understood what they were going through. I felt for them. I just was all wrapped up in this book, and I absolutely love it. So basically, our two characters, they had like a one-night stand, but our female character, she's a social media manager, and she comes to Lovelight Farms, which is where Beckett is working. He works on the farm. Now this is the second book in the Lovelight Farm series. You can read them out of order. I think they're complete standalones with individual couples. And when they meet, it's kind of like they're both going through things. They're trying to find their way in life. They're trying to figure out what they want from, in life, and where they're going to go. And I just felt like there were so many quotes in here that I wrote down that really just spoke to me, that still, if I go back and read them, they were just like, brings me back to like where I was in January. I think I read this at the beginning of January, and I absolutely loved it, and it still stuck with me. So yeah, this is definitely a 5-star read, more of like an emotional 5-star read, as in like I was emotionally attached to them. The next book I have to talk about is Offsides by Avery Keelan. I have been in my hockey era this year. I hate saying era. I feel like a basic bitch when I say that. But I'm back on my hockey bullshit. That's what I would say. Offsides is one that I gave 4.5 stars, but I rated it up to 5 on Goodreads. I just think that this book is a little too long. I mean, for contemporary romance, for it to be 400, almost literally 500 pages, that's a lot. But if you were looking for a hockey romance with a super swoon-worthy character, this is kind of like Friends to Lovers. You kind of get the enemies. I wouldn't say it's enemies to friends to lovers, because at the beginning, the only reason why our female character doesn't like our main male character is because her brother plays hockey, and our main male character, Chase, is on her brother's rival team. So it's two colleges that are in around the same area that have just always been rivals. So he plays for one team, her brother plays for the other. So she's very like, torn. But like when her ex-boyfriend, who's actually, well, you find out at the beginning of the book, becomes her ex-boyfriend, he's on the hockey team with her brother. And when they break up, everyone kind of starts pushing her away. So that pushes her away into the arms of Chase. And Chase takes her on hot chocolate dates and ice skating dates, and it is so fucking adorable. And I love him so much, and he is so swoon-worthy, and he stands up for our female character. And I ate this book up when I read it. Such a good book. I mean, I've recommended these books a lot, so if you shouldn't be surprised by seeing some of these books if you watch my channel. But yeah, this one was another really good book, another hockey book. I think I might have 1 or 2 more hockey romances on here, but yeah, I'm on my hockey bullshit, I'm not gonna lie. This year has definitely been that year for me. The next book I have is The Choice by Ashley Jade. So this is a book that I gave 5 stars on Goodreads, but I technically rated it like 4.5 stars for statistics reasons, but I think it does deserve the 5-star rating on Goodreads, only because Ashley Jade's writing, I feel like since I read The Words, and I have read some of her older stuff, obviously writers grow as they write book after book after book, right? Their writing will develop and get better and all of those things. And I really feel like Ashley Jade can write some messy, angsty, emotional romances. I mean, if you've read The Words, it's kind of like the bigger one. I do know that The Consequence is not out yet. I don't know when it's going to be out. I wish people would stop asking her. Like, she will release it when she is ready and when it's written. Don't get me wrong, I'm patiently waiting because this is more of like a prequel to that. So this is about 300 pages, and if you've read The Words, you'll recognize these characters. It's Memphis and Sky. Memphis and his brother Josh and the female character that they meet. So this is messy because Memphis is obviously the main male character in this book, and you see how he saw our female character first, but she fell in love with Josh because they have this like trauma bond of what happened, and there's triggers out the ass for this book. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of triggers, so definitely check them out. Or if you need them, just message me. I'll give you a list of them. But this is very, very emotional. I loved it. I felt like it was very fast paced, but they are 17 in the book, 16, 17. So that's not going to be for everyone, and I totally get it, but for me, I just really love Ashley Jade's writing. I love how I've seen her grow from her older stuff to now her newer things, and I think she writes in this pocket of toxic and angsty romances really, really well, so I'm extremely excited for The Consequence. Is it The Consequences or The Consequence? I think it's just The Consequence, because this is the choice. Oh, okay, that's the choice, and The Consequence is what comes after. Sorry, just put that together. Anyway, I really like this one, but just know that it doesn't on a cliffhanger. No one has a happily ever after. It's kind of love triangle-y. It's very messy. It's very toxic. Very emotional. Just know that. The next book that I want to talk about is Even If It Hurts by Marnie Mann. So have I read Marnie Mann before? I don't know if I've actually read Marnie Mann before this one, but I saw McKay from Oh Hey It's McKay talk about this book. And she was like, oh, I ate this book up. And I thought, well, I was working and I was like, I need an audiobook. Why not pick it up? It's on Hoopla. It's like 7.5 hours. And I don't like love triangles, okay? Because I hate when the character chooses one character at the end and it's not the one I want her to be with, and then I automatically just don't like it because I have X, Y, and Z reasons why I think she should be with one guy over the other guy. So when it's not the right guy that I love, I get mad. I mean, that's pretty much why I don't like love triangles. But with this book, I'll tell you, there were so many parts in the bock where I was like, I don't know where this book is going to go. I don't know who she's going to choose. I'm not going to be mad if she chooses this one over this one or that one over that one. Like, I really had no clue. I went back and forth so much on who she was going to choose. But this got a 5-star read for me because I was so sucked into the story that, like, I couldn't stop reading. I couldn't stop the audiobook. I didn't want to put it down. I needed to know what happens. And for me, when I have all those emotions where I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? This and that, so messy, so angsty, so this, so that. Oh my God, I hate him, I love him, back and forth. That to me is a 5-star read. When I can't put a book down, I don't want to put a book down, and I just fall in love with everything. So that's why that one got a 5-star read. The next one I have is Rush by Emma Scott. So you know me, I love a disability rep in any book, right? And I think when I first, Sam from Sam Reads Little read this book, and she was like, this is my first 5-star read of the year. And I was like, whoa, I need to see what this book's about, because Emma Scott can write emotional books. I mean, like, we all know that, right? But in this book, our main male character, he is blind. You see that he was in a climbing accident. It's like a scaling, like he scales mountains and stuff like that. I don't know the particular name of what it's called, okay? But he fell, hit his head, and that caused him to go blind. So he's been blind for quite a while, and he just is like a recluse now. He put himself up into his apartment. He doesn't really leave. He has things delivered and stuff like that. So our female character, she works at this diner. She's just like trying to get by. And she has to deliver, food to him, even though he's ordered from there before. She's never been the one to go deliver it. And so while she's there, he's like, what are you doing? Who are you? Like, you're new, blah, blah, blah. And his butler is actually like, I think he would benefit from you being here. So she's hired as like the live-in person, like kind of caretaker to help him out, make sure he takes his medicine, make sure he does this, and make sure he eats, and just like kind of get him on a schedule. Because he's been this reclusive person that just kind of given up on a lot of things. And I was crying before 50% of this book. Like, I was very emotionally attached. I got extremely emotional by the characters and what they're doing. So once again, that's why it was a 5-star read. I loved it so much. It's another Emma Scott that probably be on my top of the year, but like my top list of the year. But yeah, she writes such good emotional romances that just drag me in, and I like her writing. But the next one, I mean, you guys are not going to be surprised by this one. Right Man, Right Time by Megan Quinn. I mean, you may be surprised if you don't watch my channel a lot. I am someone who doesn't like Megan Quinn's writing. Sometimes her rom-com-y stuff just doesn't vibe with me. But this one, I listened to the audiobook. I actually saw QB Tyler talking about this book and how she's like, oh my God, it's age gap. He's like 10 years older. She's in college. He's a professional hockey star. His his girlfriend at the time that he was going to propose to cheated on him. So he's like heartbroken and stuff. You see that at the very beginning of the book. And, you know, it's a fake dating thing. Our female character goes up to him at a bar and was like, I'm so sorry. You need to make my ex jealous. I'm going to kiss you in like 5 seconds. And then he's like, well, you owe me. And it's kind of this fake dating situation that they get into. He stays at her dorm. I loved it. I thought this was a great time. I thought that it was emotional. I thought they had a deep connection. They became friends through this fake dating thing, and then it led to more. It is spicy. I didn't mind the age gap, and I didn't mind that our female character is still in college, technically. I mean, it was her last year, but yeah, I mean, the miscommunication at the end, which is part of the plot point, is not my favorite, but I got over it because I had such a great time with the book. So yeah, this is another one where I've talked about it quite a bit because I put it in romance recommendations, but I'm also surprised that like I gave a Megan Quinn book 5 stars because usually I don't vibe with her writing. But the next one is a fantasy romance, and that's Court of Blood and Bindings by Lisette Marshall. This was a new to me author. I picked up the audiobook. I saw Jess from Honest Fiction talking about this book, and she said that it was so good, and I was like, well, Jess is like the fantasy romance queen. She reads so much. So like if she tells me that a fantasy romance is good, like I'm gonna pick it up, right? And most of the time we do vibe with fantasy romances. Like if she loves a fantasy romance, I also love a fantasy romance. So I devoured this book. The ending of this book was so shocking. It's a trilogy. I think all 3 books now are out. I haven't continued, but I want to. This is more of like a recent fantasy romance read for me. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. This is one of those things where female character, she knows her weaknesses. She can acknowledge her weaknesses. But what gets me is our main male character does not speak. They have something called the Mother, and he is her silent death. That's what he's called, and that's what he's known for. Basically, he does the killings for her. The Mother, which is like the queen of their like kingdom, took away his voice to where only he can speak to her. He can't speak to anyone else. So he can't like talk about things that are going on. I mean, obviously he can write stuff down, but like he doesn't communicate like that, like through speech. And, but you see him, he's in our female character's kingdom and basically takes her as captive, brings her to his, and he finds out that she's half fae. Now, the catch with this like whole thing is that any fae that's living ever in this world is like tethered to the Mother to where they can't hurt her, which in turn means that they can't like, you know, try and take her down. But so he's trying to hide the fact that she is half fae and still trying to put on this thing like she's just a little human that he's in love with and infatuated with, and like that's it, like a little captive, you know, person that he's like keeping or whatever. But it's like she's learning about, you know, the fae and all this stuff, and she's like trying to figure out how they can take her down because he wants Creon, which is our main male character, the Silent Death, wants to take her down too. And their romance is very, very interesting, and I was just completely enamored by the characters and what they were going through, and I loved it. Loved it. Love that fantasy romance. I cannot wait to continue. I've actually started reading. I'm a couple chapters in, but I wish they had the audiobook out for the 2nd and 3rd book because physically reading has, you know, takes me a little while. Takes me a little while to get to physical books. But the next one I have is Echoes of You by Catherine Cowles. I gave this book 4.5 stars, but rated it 5 stars. Now, I was going to put Whispers of You because that book also came out this year, but out of the 2, this one's my favorite. So this is Nash's story. And if you were looking for the like who did this vibes, that literally is a quote in this book. So our female character, I can never remember her name. What is her name? Maddie. I never remember. It's either one or the other. I remember. But Maddie is basically back in town after leaving her abusive ex-husband. No, she's an ex-boyfriend. So she comes back to the town that she grew up in. And Nash has been her childhood friend for years and years and years, but they never like had a relationship or anything like that. So when she comes back, you know, Nash is asking all these questions and he figures out what happens. And he's like, who did this to you? And I'm like, oh my God, I ate that shit up. Now, this series is more romantic suspense, which is why I gave it 4.5 stars personally. I do not like romantic suspense. I'm a big person to say that. I just don't like romantic suspense. It just doesn't do it for me. That's not what I look for in books. But this series by Catherine, her Lost and Found series, is more romantic suspense. So if you're looking for that and that's your vibe, you're going to like it. But if you're like me, I mean, Catherine Cowles is like one of the only authors that can do romantic suspense where it doesn't annoy me. I've said that multiple times. But yeah, if you don't like romantic suspense, just stay away from the series because it's not going to be for you and you're not going to like it. But I personally enjoyed it. 4.5 star, 5-star rating on Goodreads. And yeah, there's just a good small town romantic suspense romance. The next book I have to talk about is Weak Side by, what's her name? Ashay Silvis. I blanked on her name. I recently read this hockey romance. Like I said, I'm back on my hockey bullshit, okay? And I don't know what it is, but the friends to lovers hockey romances are my absolute favorite. I've read a lot of hockey romances, but the ones that are enemies to lovers tend to not have a 5-star rating for me. Like it's a 4-star read, but it's not like the full 5-star. I think it's just because friends to lovers is my absolute favorite, one of my favorite tropes to read. Absolute favorite tropes to read. But Weak Side is fake dating, reformed playboy, roommates. It has a lot, and I personally really enjoy it. So like I said, he's a reformed playboy, or he's a playboy. And our female character, she is put into the same dorm room as him because she has like a gender neutral name. So like they thought that she was a guy. She's a girl, obviously. So they're like, they don't have anywhere else to go. He's one of the star hockey players. She just doesn't like hockey people in general. She's a dancer. So it's one of those things where they're forced to live together. But then like halfway through the book, he's like, oh, she's like becoming a friend. And like, I can kind of use her to fend off puck bunnies. And so they kind of have this mutual fake dating thing. To get her ex away from her. She finds out, I think at the beginning of the book, that her ex cheated on her, basically. So I thought this one was a good one. The friends to lovers aspect just always gets me. And yeah, it was a 4.5 star, but I rated it 5 star because I fell in love with the book. I read it like very, very quickly. The last book I have to talk about is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I'm someone who I had a great time reading this fantasy romance. I got looped into the world, to the characters, to what they're doing, how the story was told and everything like that, and it just really worked for me. The chronic illness rep in this book also really worked for me. Our female character Violet, she has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or what is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it shows that like literally every single decision she makes is based on chronic illness, and how it really does affect her life. And she's trying to live a normal life, but it's hard. It's impossible, basically, because of everything that she has going on. And I mean, I've talked about this quite a bit. I've talked about this book quite a bit. It is an extremely hyped up book, and for me, it personally worked. I loved it. I thought it was such a good time. Like, it's been a while since I opened up a book and got literally like sucked in. Like the Chloe Walsh series, The Boys of Toman, Finding 13, Keeping 13. I got looped into that world. Same thing with this. It's just like I opened up the book and I was just sucked in, couldn't put it down, didn't want to put it down, and everything like that. So that's why this one got a 5-star read for me. But that is my 15 books that I have given 5 stars this year so far. I hope to obviously have more 5-star reads in the last half of the year, but you can let me know what one of your top reads of the year so far, but also leave me some star emojis because we're talking about 5-star books. Leave me some star emojis in the comments down below if you made it this far. But I want to say thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content for me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.